Welcome to another episode of Therapy JA. I'm your host, Stephen Roper, and today I have someone I'm very excited to interview. So, Craig McNally, I've known this person from high school days. I saw that he was, a counselor online, and I was like, okay, cool. I wonder, but very good, a very good person, good energy. But I'm very, very curious to hear because you're the head psychologist for UTECH, or is it like, I'm sorry, could you introduce yourself? Introduce yourself. I was like,
Cool, cool. Yeah, man, Steve, it's great to connect, after all these years. So these days I'm the senior counselor at UTECH. That just means that I'm responsible for managing the psychological services that the university offers to students primarily, also to staff. And occasionally we'll see some community clients. These are non-UTECH affiliated persons. And I manage clinical staff as well as administrative staff and interns when we do have them.
okay, all right, cool. So, all right, so did you always know you wanted to be a therapist, like when you're in high school and growing up? Like, what put you on this path?
Right. So I actually wanted to be a guidance counselor. I wanted to
Okay.
be a guidance counselor. Yeah. Yeah, I
Oh,
did. And eventually, so after sixth form, I went to the Michael. And if you know anybody who went to the Michael, you know why I'm referring to it as the Michael. Right. So the Michael Teachers College, now Michael University College, and studied guidance and counseling and education there, and left with a diploma in guidance and counseling, but no job to go into. Believe me, anybody who is interested in getting into guidance and counseling will tell you that vacancies don't come up very often. Uh,
really?
oh yeah, for sure, they don't come up very often. How if you are a woman looking for a job, you your chances of finding a job are pretty low. But those chances increase if you are a male. But even so, it is pretty difficult to get into a guidance counseling position. And so, my first job out of college was teaching drama at Snandra High School for Girls.
Really?
And that's just a funny story because, well, I don't mean it's funny, but it's not, because it's really not funny. But it's a very interesting story
Mm.
because so prior to me graduating, I was invited to speak at what St. Andrew calls a commemoration service. So I think it happens in September, thereabout, and it's just really to mark the start of a new school year. And I was invited to be the guest speaker, and so having done that, the principal was familiar with my profile, my experience, knew that I was also involved in the performing arts, and would have heard me speak and loved what she heard. It was then Mrs. Sharon Reed who was the principal. And anyway, graduated, and somebody told me that there was a vacancy for a guidance counselor at St. Andrew. And I went up, saw Mrs. Reed, and said, "Hey, Mrs. Reed, it's Craig." And she says, "Hey, what are you doing, Craig?" I said, "Hey, I heard that you guys have a vacancy for a guidance counselor." And guess what? I'm a guidance counselor. Anyway, she said, "Well, actually, we did have a vacancy, but I do have a vacancy for a drama teacher, and it's for one term. Are you interested?" And I said, "Of course, I'm interested." because at the point when St. Andrew came on the radar, I oh no, that's the second time. Sorry, I'm jumping ahead of myself. But anyway, I would have sent out, applications. I would have been looking for vacancies and not finding any. So I jumped in, started teaching there, and towards the end of the semester, I was told that it's extended for another semester if I'm available. And I said, sure. And so I was there for a year teaching drama. I had a blast. I had such a good time there.
Okay. So what
And
happened after that?
all right. So right. So after that, I now needed to find a job, something more long-standing, long-term, and was looking for a guidance counseling job because look here, you're not going to spend up all of that money to study and time to study and not actually do what you really love and really want to do. Yeah. So I saw a vacancy. Well, I heard about a vacancy at a school up in a one bush. I'm a trek it, go up there, and well, there was like a panel, right, for this interview. Because I would have submitted the application and then I was invited to do an interview. And when I went in the interview, I saw somebody from where I was studying, where I studied to do my bachelor's, because at the time it was a diploma that Michael awarded. So I saw somebody and I'm saying, yes, I have a foot in the door. Well, the interview was going reasonably well until said person says, you're here. Because maybe you can't see, but I actually have locks. Yeah, no, so said person said, "You're here. Our students here are very impressionable, and it's a small community. It's a community school, and I just don't know how the parents would feel about you're here, and it's boys are so impressionable and so on, and well." I didn't get the job, Stephen. I didn't get the job.
Because of my hair.
Because of my hair. Or was that the real reason? Because, fun fact, saw said person maybe a year or two later, and they were now in that position. And I was like, well, look at this. Anyway, so the story gets better because on my way to this school, I had to pass another school. And I had prepared an application and resume that I said I would leave at that school should they need a counselor. So, and this was a private high school. So it wasn't a public school run by the government. This was a private entity. So on my way from that interview, knowing very well that I would not get the job, I stopped at this school. The school was on break. The principal was in office, spoke to the admin staff. I said, hey, I'm here to drop this off. She said, would you like to speak with the principal now? And I said, okay, sure. Spoke with her. By the end of that day, I got a call for an interview. There was a panel. And again, I sat in front of a panel. This was in the same week. And nervous about what they're going to say about my hair. And the principal actually says, wow, I love your hair. I just love how your hair looks. I love it. And well, I got that job. So, it's just so interesting. It's just so
interesting. I think it's always kind of like, Because you felt like it wasn't going to work out. You sounded like you're like, well, I'm going to get that job, but let me at least just show up.
For sure. And I was with that school for, I think it was perhaps 2 years. I was there for 2 years. Or was it a year? I think it was 2 years. Yeah. And turns out that the school they were going to close the school. And just when I was about to, just when I needed something else, I got a call from Campion College because I had expressed interest in working at Campion. And I got a call from the head of department, Karen, and she said, "Hey, Craig, are you still interested?" I said, "Oh, yeah, for sure."
Really? Yeah.
And again, nervous about my hair because this time I had in a streak right here. I
Wow.
bleached out the side right here
Yeah,
and had
yeah.
in three locks that were, bleached out. And I was like, oh boy, this is Campion. There's no way they're going to be okay with this out of the box look.
Yeah.
Listen, it did not come up. Market, this was just an interview with just the principal and the head of department, I believe, but it did not come up. It did not factor. It didn't matter. And so I then became one of the guidance counselors at Campion College, and I was there for 3.5 years until I got an offer from UTECH to join as a counselor. And I bawled. I remember going up in a set. Well, actually, there was a group of students I worked with having resurrected the sign language club because I sign as well. And I remember they were the first set of students I told. And I remember them, in the meeting, and I was there crying. And then the following morning, the principal allowed me to say goodbye to the school, to the students. And I was there again, teared up. And, because I really loved being there. I completely loved it, but knew that this was a great opportunity for professional development and growth. And I just couldn't make it.
Yeah, you had to jump at the opportunity. But
I had to take it.
But bro, I have to respect because like you constantly put yourself out there because even though you're like, boy, I don't know if them way like they hear, it's Campion, man, and if I get it, but you still show up. You know what I mean? And you still go through. You still put yourself out there. You know what I mean? Which I think is very encouraging for a lot of people because of how difficult it is now for jobs and the fact that you went through so much and it was discouraging. But yeah, honestly, like listening to that, I feel like that reason was petty from the first person, and I feel like them probably did want the position. So you know what I mean? They came up with an excuse. But I think you put yourself out there, and you know what I mean, and so you applied to like you had sent out an application to UTECH at the time as well while you were at Campion, or it was.
So as it turns out, when I was at Campion, I was doing my master's. And my master's in counseling psychology. And a requirement of the program is a practicum within a counseling center. So I did one of my 2 practicums at UTECH. And it turns out that the person whose job I eventually got was, he was leaving the unit and was going over to academics. So he wasn't leaving the institution. He was just making a shift over to academics. And the head of department at the time got a recommendation from him that he thinks I would make a good what's the word?
A good feeling, like a good replacement?
A good feeling, right.
Yeah, okay.
And I did an interview and I got it. So, I always, whenever I think about that, I always, what comes to mind is being in the right place at the right time. Being in the right place at the right time. And that was just tremendous favor, just tremendous.
Bro, I mean, yeah, absolutely, it's favor, and I think it's that too. It's 100% favor, but I think you put yourself out there, and I felt like everything snowballed. It led to the next. You know what I mean? Like you had that, you said yes to the opportunity of doing it for a year. Because some people will say, yo, just a year, so what am I gonna do for a year? But you still said yes. You know what I mean? So everything just like went from one. So 1 year there, then 2 years there, then three. And so how long you been at UTECH? What, like 10 years now?
Right. So I've been at UTECH, I think it's 12 years now. 12 years. Yeah, 12 years. I
Man.
joined in January 2011.
Ah, you see what I'm saying? So like just the consistent, like, keep on going and keep it's very inspirational, and so know that. All right, so what the questions I have for you in terms of that now is being at college and being a counselor at college, what were like the main mental health issues or the issues that students would come? Okay, it doesn't have to be mental health, but what were the issues that the most common issues students would come to you about?
You know, I always think about college or higher education as being just high school, but a bigger version of high school
High school with
because
alcohol.
high school with alcohol and tons more weed and tons more relationship issues and bigger financial demands. So among the issues, there are, I'm going to start with financial because, higher education is not cheap. And so lots of students have financial challenges. There are also relationship challenges because that's where for many students and finally I broke them ducks and all them things and and who want pick cherry and and all them things, right? So there are tons of relationship issues. But there are also other issues which are psycho-emotional in nature. And as it turns out, many clients who present at a university counseling center, many of them know that they have some stuff that they need to work on, but they've never had the opportunity to really work on those things. And so being in college now, here's their opportunity to finally, talk about this thing that happened to them when they were 14 or, or begin to explore how them come so, why they struggle with the things that they do. So there's a lot of that. The fact is that guidance counselors don't have the time to sit down to do therapy with one child. And I say therapy, every week, to highlight the consistency. They don't have the time to do that. And so, finally getting to a place that has a counseling center is where it's at. Now, other issues include loneliness, because for many students, they're just coming from high school. They have social anxiety. They're scared to talk to other people. They're scared to make friends. Many of them are coming from rural Jamaica. First time they might come at Kingston. First time they're living on their own, and sometimes this is on dorm or sometimes it's in a off-campus housing. And they miss their family, they miss their friends. And there are also academic issues at that level. And there is getting oriented to higher education and what that means and how the interaction with a lecturer is so different from the interaction with a teacher from high school. Right. So those are some of the issues. There are also issues of identity, where people say, hey, I'm going to become a party freak now. Yeah, forget all that.
I'll go through that in college.
Right. There is the there is the smoking, as I mentioned before, and coming into an understanding of, am I a smoker?
As an identity. Yeah. Yeah.
And all these things. And, well, just so many issues, so many issues.
How common was weed in terms of, have you seen cases of weed like triggering mental health issues? Because I've been with a lot of other therapists that I've been interviewing. We have been talking about how, one, alcohol is a serious addiction in Jamaica, or even the Caribbean, that we have yet to really acknowledge, and that ganja, and that because we all have triggers for mental health issues, ganja in most cases is a trigger for a lot of people, for that can lead to bipolar disorder, schizophrenia. Have you seen issues like that happen on campus, or?
For sure, for sure, for sure. Um, without going into too,
Yeah, you don't have to go into too much detail. I understand.
let's just say I've had to I've had to facilitate the hospitalization of students, students who marijuana has triggered psychosis. They're up in the night, making noise, disturbing other students. They are believing they are somebody else. Yes, so many issues as it relates to weed. I've had students, dropping out of school because they can't focus, they can't concentrate. Oh yeah, because of the weed. Yeah. Because remember, it acts upon your nervous system, and it really does. It impacts people in different ways. I I remember one particular person, young man, who came into my office and was like, yo, the school you need for, UTECH need to go out with them. Yo, do I want to go suck on them? Yo, I'm the pun of love, man. Thing. I want the pun. Yo, I think. And this is like on top of his voice. The other clinical staff there, somebody afterwards came and said, Craig, I was going to open the door, because I was wondering what was going on in there. And I'm like, no, man, it's cool. He's just letting off some steam,
Oh.
Right. So he had actually turned up to a meeting that was requested and under the influence of the substance, and just got very irate, and eventually just stormed out. And I really don't know what ever happened.
You don't know what happened to him after that? Like,
we followed up, to be honest, but we never got through. We never got through on the phone. Yeah. I mean, I hope he's okay, and he will eventually come back to us.
People fall through the cracks? Does that happen where someone has a mental health issue, leave the school, and you're just like, know what happened to him for months or years? Does that happen?
That does happen sometimes, but when it does happen, it's where we would have handed them over to the care of another specialist, who continues their care. They're not in the institution, and so our remit has pretty much been exceeded at that point. We would have referred them, and sometimes they come back, sometimes they re-enroll, and we provide the necessary academic accommodations for them because they might need that, and we continue with psychotherapy for them.
Okay. Would you say that the impact of like transitioning from student life into college life, does it take a toll on students' mental health, or normally are they like happy like, yo, my parents no longer there, I'm good, you know what I mean? How does that work?
Well, the parents and the kind of accountability that they're so happy to get rid of, they don't realize that that was actually a protective factor in their life. And sometimes they just go over the deep end and get too involved in things that they're experimenting and so on, and get carried away. But there is also just there really is a period of adjustment, and some students adjust well. And by well, I mean they experience regular symptoms, that would come with adjustment. But sometimes they don't do that well, and they have to go back home at least for a little while and then come back. Or sometimes they they become so depressed. Sometimes chemical intervention is needed in terms of psychotropics are needed, but there's also adjusting to living in a room with two strangers, and you have to get used to that. You have to get used to preparing your own food. You have to get used to doing your own laundry if you weren't doing that before. And you have to self-regulate. You have to get yourself out of bed, to class, put yourself to bed at a reasonable time. And then to, as I mentioned before, just forming new relationships can really be hard.
Okay. What's the most common like issue that students would come to you? Relationships or like academics?
Well, we see a lot of academic issues. We see a
Stress
lot of,
of the-
and yes, in terms of students just being overwhelmed by the amount of work they have to do. There are also certain university policies that are activated through the counseling unit or the medical center.
When you say policies, you're talking like HIPAA laws?
No, I'm talking about university regulations such as
I'm here.
okay, all right, so such as the we have one called the absence from exam policy, and the absence from exam policy is in place for students who have a final assessment, but they have had a serious life stressor, such as, but not limited to, their house burning down, them meeting in an accident, them becoming unwell, whether physically or psychologically unwell, them being the victim of a robbery, really any extenuating psychosocial stressor, any extenuating circumstances, those kinds of things, the counseling unit would jump in and ensure that these students, one, receive the necessary psycho-emotional support that they need, but also we submit paperwork for them, which ensures that they're able to sit their exam or sit their final assessment, whatever it is, when next that exam or assessment is being offered. Sometimes, too, we have to advocate for students. We have to advocate to lecturers for students. Sometimes we have to write to the SLB on behalf of students to say, hey, the student was supposed to be done last year, but there were some extenuating circumstances in their life, and so their studentship has been extended. and so they are unable to start repaying their loan at this time. What else? Sometimes we write to the member of parliament to ask
Really?
for yes to write we write asking the member of parliament to support the student through the community development fund, the CDF, towards their tuition. What else do we do?
I never knew. I didn't even know there was an option as that of asking a member of parliament. And does that normally happen? Does the member of parliament like provide for the student, or what happens?
When we write, yes.
Okay. I got
when
to
we
ask
write.
so,
well, it could be the member of parliament or the minister of education. Or sometimes we will write support letters for scholarships as well. So because of where we sit in the school community, we are au fait with information that the student would, which could support financial, help, assistance, and other social services as well. And so with the permission of the student, we will write these letters and get them the help they need. So it's not just counseling, it's really we provide human services, whatever those human services are. Which one of the questions I know you wanted to ask about was, how is this different from regular therapy?
Yeah.
And it is or going to a mental health professional outside of a university context, and it there are many similarities, but there are perhaps more differences. So for example, by virtue of being in a educational institution, we do a lot of academic advising. In psychotherapy, we don't give advice. But in higher education, many times we will have to literally tell the client what to do. So we will say, okay, this is what you're going to do. Come back to me on Friday. On Friday, I will have a letter prepared for you, which you will take to this person. When you go to this person, make sure you tell them X, Y, and Z. Say it this way. So there's a lot of directing, there's a lot of advising, there's a lot of coaching that takes place. Also, we get very involved in the student's life. For example, a student is hospitalized and they need clothes. We may go to their dorm or go to wherever it is that they're living off campus, and we may have to pack a bag for them and take it to them, or we might need to get things for them, or the university might need to pay for something for them.
So you're a lot more involved. You sound a lot more involved than an actual therapist would. Because a therapist, a lot of the times a therapist, you'd call a therapist and say, boy, I'm going through this. And a therapist may guide you to the process or contact, like your parents or something. But like you guys are like involved. So it's basically because they've entrusted the care of the students to the school. So you're representing the caring part of the schools. It's like you have to kind of go the extra mile, because at the end of the day, it's a business, and like the student, you're still entrusting the care of the student to the school. So you need to make sure that, is it that, cause I'm just trying to understand it from.
So students are our main customers.
Yeah.
Right? Our students are our main customers. We call the students clients. A faculty would refer to them as students. So they are our customers. And because it is a human-focused profession, we need to do what and because of where the students are as well developmentally, they
Yeah,
are,
yeah.
and we're talking about students of traditional college age. So we're talking about from maybe 17, 18, all the way up to probably 25. That's the traditional university age. So they are, I guess you could call them adolescents,
Yeah.
as in
Yeah.
they think they're adults, but they lack sense. So they're adolescents.
Yeah, yeah. I like that.
You know,
That's a good
the
one. Yeah.
frontal lobe not quite developed yet. You know, the decision making part of the brain
Yeah.
not quite developed yet. So
Yeah.
we do a lot of hand holding. We also, which is the worst part of the job. This is the part of the job I hate. I hate it because it's so, oh God, it's so sad. There are times when we lose students, and the culture of our university is that we jump on the UTECH bus, the UTECH branded bus, and we drive to wherever that student is located. Sorry, wherever that student lived, and we meet with the family, and we conduct grief counseling with the family. We bring a card from the office of the president.
Hold on.
From the
As in if the student died?
If a student dies, yes.
Oh.
And of course, this is with the consent of the family, because they may not. Well, we are yet to have a family decline our offer to visit, but we go in, and it really provides the family a chance to, the opportunity to talk and to ventilate and to tell us about this wonderful person who has passed. And but it's always sad because no parent wants to lose their child.
Is that why you don't like it?
That's why I don't like it, because of just how sad it is, and to see the parents and the family
in that grief.
It really is heartbreaking. It really is heartbreaking,
especially them.
But it does something too when that family sees that UTECH bus driving up the lane, and to see that bus parked outside. It says something to the family and to the community who are onlookers. It says, wow, this university cares, that this university actually, it matters to them that a student has lost their life.
Yeah, I think I didn't realize you were so much of an empath, but I feel like whenever like listening to you, I said that you very much care deeply, and like sometimes you feel deeply as well. You know what I mean? As a therapist, does it affect you? Is it like a thing where sometimes people come to you with their problems? Because this happens to me. Whenever someone comes to me with their issues and it's kind of heavy, like I feel the heaviness. How do you deal with that? You know what I mean? Like if someone comes to you with like a lot of times, sometimes people will come with them problems, but them have this boy problem, and I'm just like, if it's my friend, I'm like, all right, cool. But sometimes it can be the heavy stuff. Suicide and abuse and them things, and it's like, Lord Jesus, you need to see a therapist. I don't say it in that way, but I'm like, as much as nice as I am, I don't have the faculties to really like give you advice in this aspect. So I know my limits, but it still is very much like, oof, heavy. How do you deal with stuff as that, like personally?
I remember my first semester at UTECH, when it was lunchtime, I just I had to leave the campus. Like I had to get out of there. I had to leave. I would go over to Hope Gardens and sit in my car and have lunch there, because I was
Hope Gardens is nice, yeah.
Yes, I need a break. I gotta go, breeze out my head, and then I would come back and I'm ready to go again. Over the years, my brain has learned how to, and I'm going to say it this way, my brain has learned how to protect me. And I think maybe a lot of other mental health professionals would maybe agree with me and say the same thing. But after a while, your brain knows how to compartmentalize, and your brain knows how to shut off
Mm.
and move on to the next person.
Mm.
So that's really what happens, to be honest with you. Once I leave the office, I have left the office. And that's why we take a clinical notes, because we won't remember. And by the time that client comes back around, we would have perhaps seen 50 other people with far more severe issues.
Wow.
So we really have to check our notes. Say, oh, yes. Oh, yes. You spoke to me about the cat. You lost your cat.
Yeah.
Mr. Whatever, Mr. Mistopheles. You lost your cat, Mr. Mistopheles. Oh no, so sorry to hear about your cat. So yeah, so really, we really just, well, for me, I really just compartmentalize, and somehow I can't really explain how it happens. My brain could tell you. So maybe you might want to talk to it after you talk to me. But
Yeah.
I know there are sometimes some issues that are really pressing. There are some pressing issues, and that's where the clinical practice of supervision and case conferencing comes in. So supervision is when a clinician discusses a case or talks through a case with a colleague. Usually it could be a colleague, but usually it is somebody who is your supervisor, somebody who heads your unit, your counseling center, and you talk through what are some of the concerns you have about the client, how you are feeling about the case. Sometimes you might even feel that you didn't do a good job in helping the client. And then case conferences are much more involved, and usually involve a lot more people. Usually it's everybody in a center, or the clinicians who meet to talk about a case. Names are not usually mentioned, but you're talking about, this client who came to you with this issue. The client is X years old, and so on. And you hear from your colleagues how they would have handled a case like that, or and they help you to process what's going on with that client. A client does sign an informed consent before therapy, before they engage in therapy. And in that informed consent, it does talk about talk about case conferencing, and the fact that the clinician may discuss your case with their supervisor or another colleague to help you determine the best course of action or for treatment planning purposes. So it's with the client's consent, and it is accepted clinical practice. It is very ethical, and it's done in a safe and controlled.
Okay, perfect. Do you see a therapist?
I do not see a therapist, but I have friends who are therapists. In fact, I share a story with you. I remember once I was talking to a friend of mine who is a therapist. I was talking with him about a challenge I was having, and he started to, talk to me about the issue. And I said, I did like this. I pulled away and I said, I know what you're doing. I know what you're doing. And I know what you're doing because I do this with my clients. I said, this not gonna work. This not gonna work.
So I asked
This
that because
not
I even
gonna work. Yeah.
so you wouldn't. So would you do, or is it just like you don't?
Oh, I definitely would. I definitely would. I guess maybe the challenge with seeing a therapist in Jamaica
Oh my God.
is
So
you,
like,
as a therapist, is
yeah.
you may know each other.
Okay. So I had a family friend that was very very influential. Had like issues in his marriage, and it was so difficult for him to do counseling because he himself was a counselor. But I thought it was a pride thing because I was like, you need to get work, Just because you're a doctor, that don't mean say you not for say a doctor. You know what I mean? Right. So it was like it was to a point where it was kind of like, if I'm going to see somebody, it have to be somebody abroad. It can't be somebody here because he's very well known. And more
Right.
people.
And there
You
are
know what I mean?
those issues as well. Right. I mean, I do have some top level people who I see. Here's something I tell my clients, and this is in my private practice.
Okay.
I mean, this is something I tell my clients. I say, look, just so you know, if we ever run into each other in public,
Yeah.
I will never call to you. I
Yeah.
will never act as if I know you. And but if you call to me, no problem. But I will never initiate a greeting. And
Mm.
that's just because somebody might know that I'm a
That's a safety
therapist.
thing.
Right. And if we happen to be in the same circles, I'm going to just, and we are introduced, I'm going to act as if it's the first time I'm ever meeting you. No,
Has that happened to you? Has that happened?
what has happened to me is, I remember once I was at, where was I? I was having drinks at Mayfair.
Mm-hmm.
Forget the pub. That's what they call it. That's the official name, the pub. But I
Yeah.
always call it Mayfair.
Yeah.
And so I was there having drinks with friends, and one of my clients, actually from UTECH, comes in and say, "Wait," and announces, "Yo, I'm a therapist. This one, I'm a therapist. Yes, I'm a therapist. This one." And I'm like, no. We don't talk about that. No, we don't. Yo, Craig, what business? Yo, where I drink? Where I drink? Am I gonna buy a drink? I'm like, no, that's fine. That's unethical. I'm like, yeah. So he didn't care. So as long as the client doesn't care, I
Yeah.
don't care.
But you always have that ground just
Oh
as
yeah,
a
for
safe.
sure. For sure,
Mhm.
for sure, for sure.
No, man, I understand, man. Hey, okay. How has COVID-19 affected? How has the pandemic affected mental health for students?
Well, I'll tell you what's happening right now, and then I'll tell you what used to happen. So,
Okay.
what's happening right now is that uh, students are back in the classroom for the most part. There are persons for whom online is most convenient.
Of course.
But for many students, I've been hearing them talk about adjusting to being in a classroom again.
Yeah.
And well, I know for me, seeing so many people on campus, I'm like, what the hell? Like, where so much people come from? And that in itself has also been an adjustment for me. But for them, it's being in a classroom. They no longer have the comfort of just being home, of just lying in bed. For many people, being online acts as a mask. They can hide who they truly are, and they don't have to show up. They can just lie there and listen.
Mm.
During the pandemic, we hosted a number of mental health sessions to just ensure that we remained connected with our campus community and reminded them and to be a constant present should they need help, should they need support, that they could reach out to us. So we ensure that our contact information was always out there. We had multiple ways of contacting. We developed multiple ways of contacting the unit, and we ensured that we offered telehealth to those clients who were unable to come in. We did Zoom sessions. We also did phone sessions.
And this is all free of cost for students, correct?
Yes, the services are free of cost. And when they graduate, they can still access the services.
Okay, perfect. So, all right, my thing is always kind of more on the men's side. Is there a stigma amongst male students about mental health or coming or seeing a therapist?
Well, what I'll tell you is that we do have more females coming for services, but
servicing.
Listen.
Yo, I thought it too when you said it, and I was
I caught myself. Oh my God. Help. Okay, let me just say that again. So we do have more female than male students accessing counseling services, but we certainly do have males coming in for therapy. Yes. And we, one of the things we do is we try to take the services outside of the center. So, for example, we have peer counselors. We train peer counselors in basic counseling skills, and we also have workshops. So, sorry, we have these not forums. Fora is the plural. We host fora.
I actually did not know that. I thought it was forums.
Fun fact. Fun fact, fora. Yeah. No, me not too sure. Me I pronounce it right, but me sure it's fora. I'm sure it's not forums, right?
I thought it was forums.
No,
yeah,
it's crazy. It's crazy what Google can teach you. So we have these fora throughout the school year, and these are virtually. And we also do what's called lunch and learn. Well, pre-COVID, we did lunch and learn sessions. So we would go to one of the eateries on campus, just have a speaker, a microphone, and as students have lunch where they're talking to them about a mental health issue, we might have a what do you call those things when you a panel discussion? And those have gone really, really well. Really well. So not everybody's going to come in, but so sometimes we have to. So we do have males, but we certainly do have more females than males. What is interesting is and the males who do come in, I would say a good majority of them do cry. They do cry. And that's good because it means that they feel safe. At least that's how I interpret it, that they feel safe. And this issue that has been pressing on them for so long, and that has become so overwhelming for them, they feel that they're in a safe space where they're not going to be ridiculed or laughed at or seen or as less masculine because they are expressing themselves through tears. And sometimes many of these male clients also express themselves through anger, such as the case I mentioned earlier. And sometimes tears are anger, is a representation of anger, you know. So yeah, I'm glad we have been able to create that kind of space.
I remember because we were talking about a person I interviewed earlier, and it was just like, in terms of how transparent and open he was about his own mental health issues, and I think so. My focus is really of it becoming a safe space and breaking the stigma, which is why I've been interviewing so many different therapists, talking to so many different not even just like child psychologists, occupational therapists, psychiatrists, psychologists, just to hear like the different issues they have had in and like breaking the stigma. Because I remember when I first built I built like a website for just like had a list of all the therapists on the island, like. But then I realized a lot of people studied it, but they end up as jobs as teachers or guidance counselors, because it's not that easy to get a job as a therapist. So
placements are hard.
Yeah, placements are hard. But I remember I was just like, I was at a dinner with some friends, and they were just like telling issues they have had, like bad therapy issues of like therapists. I tell one girl, say, yeah man, she need a rough man in her life, or you know what I mean? Just certain comments made, and it was just like, oh my gosh, like bad experiences.
Okay. Did she need a rough man in her life?
I don't know.
Listen, sometimes I don't know what that therapist meant by rough, and I probably should leave it alone and just move on and just have you move on. But what I really the point I'm really making is that sometimes a therapist will have to use confrontation with a client to get them to grow, to move from where they are, So I don't know what the therapist meant by a rough man, and
I don't think she got the drift of it.
The drift, right? Maybe it was too early in the therapeutic relationship for that kind of truth.
Is it like tough love? Is it like tough love you call it?
Maybe, sure.
Okay.
Sure. I mean, in therapy terms, we wouldn't call it tough love, we call it confrontation, but maybe it was too soon.
All right. What would you like to see in like Jamaican society to help, with mental health out here? Because I feel like a lot of Jamaicans have some serious mental health issues that they do not want to confront, and I feel like a lot of times the stigma of it is, because all right, I'm gonna give you some experiences. So I think the stigma is one, only mad people go therapists. I used to see my therapist at Bellevue, and I have to be honest, I was very conscious of going to Bellevue. Driving into Bellevue, telling the guard, yeah man, I'm going to see this person. Come if he said, that guy there probably thinks I'm a madman. I drive in a Bellevue. You know what I mean? Honestly, so I no longer like I see him online, but I don't go into Bellevue, because brother, honestly, that stigma I felt. So a lot of it, do you think it's like people judging themselves, or you think there is a stigma out here? So, and another example is because all right, even the issues I've told you about, like models, like, because I'm a photographer, so a lot of times models will come to me with the issues, and brother, it's heavy. You know what I mean? And so, a model will say, boy, she has struggled with suicidal thoughts and suicidal ideation. And, as I said, boy, therapists I recommend, but, other people would hear that and say, nah, man, if that person willing to take their own life, what them would do to me? So, I mean, like, you know what I mean? So there's a judgment thing. So the question I have is, do you think there is a healthy stigma of it out here in the Caribbean? And if not, or what could be done to rectify that? What do you see could be done to rectify or help improve it?
Right. Geez, I feel like I have so many things to say in response to this question. I think the first thing I'll say is that is to agree with you about the stigma around being mad, in air quotes. And I think we have this idea that you have to be going through a serious mental health challenge, having serious mental illness, like schizophrenia, or in layman's terms, even walking on the street naked, like that. That is what you go and see, or if you try to unalive yourself, that's what you go to a therapist for. Not little depression, and you feel a little sad, or you feel a little jumpy, a little fidgety. No, you not go to therapist for that. And there's this idea about what you do instead. So what you do instead is you need to go take your Bible, go open your Bible and read 2 Psalms and go pray to God. And is a demon upon you. I'm going to carry you, go as Sister Chunky, make sure lay hands on you suddenly and glory to God. There's also the belief that our family, we don't go to therapists, we don't go to counselors, we don't bring family business outside of the family. We keep it here. And so the family becomes insular and implodes upon itself, because, the family is a system, and everybody's acting upon, what's going on on everybody else's response to things, And then there's the matter of access. A lot of people, which is why I think your website is so important. A lot of people just don't know where to go to find a therapist, and their only reference of a counselor is their high school guidance counselor, who might have not been a very good example, by the way, right? Or there might have been some generalizations made about that person that they have held on to, not even knowing if they were true or not, So access is something. And here's the other thing: cost. It's kind of, it can cost. Therapy can cost, especially if you plan to do a couple of sessions. But there are people who charge on a scale. So what that means is that they have a minimum cost, and then there's their real cost, and they'll say to you, "Hey, where on this scale what's the best you can do?" And they will meet you, and they'll meet you there. And I'm not sure where we are right now, but there are some insurance. There are some that will, depending on the plan or whatever it is that you're on, that will pay for therapy. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
You know which ones? I didn't know that. No,
I'm not sure, but I'm of the impression that both of them offer that now.
Sagicor?
I think so. Don't quote me on that. Don't quote me because I don't take it, so I really don't know.
Take insurance?
But I believe Sagicor does. Sagicor does, because and how I know that is because the students at UWI, that's how they access counseling services at UWI. They swipe their health card, and I believe their health services is with Sagicor.
Huh. I gotta check that. Come on. If I can use my insurance, sometimes I don't mind.
Sure, why not?
Therapy, because I do think the cost is an issue. I think a lot of people think it's expensive, and it is. It really is. You know what I mean? A session would be like 9K, like 10,000, which the average person, they can probably do that once a month, but more than once a month is like, no, this is
There are also, so besides there being a scale, a scaling cost approach, or a scaled cost approach that some therapists use, others will work with a client and have your sessions, and at the end of the month, maybe when you're better able to pay, when you've come into some money,
when the check clear,
when the check clears, you pay for your sessions.
Okay.
So that does happen, and there are services which are free of charge.
Wow. Okay.
Right.
That's on the wellness bench.
Right. I should also mention that while this is not a long-term fix, there are these virtual mental, I won't call them counseling, these virtual mental health support lines. So, for example, the Ministry of Health has 888 New Life. And you can call there to get mental health support. I'm also aware that the Bureau of Gender Affairs, am I saying that properly? Through the Ministry of something and gender something. This is bad. Anyway, they do have hotlines for persons who are dealing with gender-based violence. Okay. They have a line for women, and they have a line that is specific to men that men can call in if they are a victim of intimate partner violence.
Okay, what advice do you have for parents, friends, on how they can support a student who may be struggling with mental health issues?
Well, I think you're a good example of that. Know your limits. So if a friend, a child comes to you to talk about the struggles that they're going through, by all means, create a space where they can really ventilate about those issues, and a non-judgmental, welcoming space. But know your limits. Know when it's time to refer to a professional, I would also want to say, if your child is, if you're seeing certain behaviors, please take your child to see a counselor. You may not be able to afford a child psychologist, but there is the child, what's it called? There is the clinic. There's a clinic, a child. Oh dear.
Dr. Shetty?
Well, he's one. He's a child psychiatrist, right? And he works in one of these centers where you can take there's one located at the Bustamante Hospital, for example, where you can take your child there for mental health services. But if you are seeing certain behaviors, like the child has attempted to take their own life, or they've told you that they are having thoughts about self-harm, then take them for counseling. Take them to see somebody, and don't take them to see your church brother unless your church brother is a licensed professional, is a licensed mental health professional. And if they are a licensed mental health professional, they will stabilize, they will at least provide some grounding for the child, but will say to you, hey, this is a dual relationship. Let me assist you to find another counselor. Okay, because yeah.
I'm going to tackle that in an upcoming episode because I really think it needs to be tackled in terms of the church and mental health. It's not like the church is not a haven for mental health.
Right. Even at well, let's put it this way. Let's put it this way. Uh the church is a social institution that many people who have mental illness will go to
Yeah.
find answers, support, support through prayer,
Yeah.
and will go to find deliverance.
Mhm.
However, there are pastors who only have their only mental health training is pastoral counseling,
Mhm.
which oftentimes is inadequate to meet the scope of the symptoms, and is incapable of making the necessary diagnoses and the necessary clinical referrals that and the necessary treatment planning that is needed to support this person. I do know, however, that there are people who pastor who do have their postgraduate certification in a field of mental health, and they have gone the length of getting licensed, which is where we are now as a country. That's a great thing. Oh, one of the things I'd wanted to just indicate or just highlight, or laud rather, is the fact that as a country, we are talking about mental health issues more, perhaps more than ever before. We're finally talking about it. And perhaps it's the pandemic that has led to this, happening, where there's just this very present awareness that we need to deal with our mental health issues as they come up, and that there will be mental health issues. So, and so we see, and I think a lot of this has come through the pandemic or from the pandemic, but also from people in social media, people who are talking about their own mental health issues, and people who are maybe if not self-disclosing, they are certainly encouraging people to go and get the necessary help that they need. Right. So back to pastors, and it's not just mental illness. There's also the marriage counseling that needs a lot of help, because there are things that a church, their issues, desires, conflicts that a church member may not feel comfortable raising with their pastor, because the pastor might lose respect for them, or lose the image of this holier than thou person that they had, and so and I am not convinced that, I'm not very convinced that many pastors who engage in pastoral counseling are going the depth and breadth of the issues that surround marriage and post-marriage counseling too, and all them things that they need to. So it's those two issues. Right. So I think.
So so if you think they're not taking the steps that they need to, or they don't have the faculties to really tackle these issues, so you think, I don't want to put words in your mouth. What do you think should be done then? You think?
What it is that I don't think that many, not all, okay? I don't think that many pastors have the skills and the clinical competence to treat with many of the mental illness issues that present before them. That's what I think. But they are in an ideal position by virtue of being a human service professional as well, and by virtue of being a pastor, having connections and knowledge. They can use that to responsibly refer someone to services that they desperately need.
Okay, that's very well thought. That's a very well thought out and well.
It have because me the pioneer, I represent a whole profession, and if say it the right way, and but it's true. It's true.
I think another therapist was saying that, like, if they had like a therapist on call at the church, or had a therapist at the church as well, and not aside from the pastor for counseling, that would make a difference.
Oh, for sure, yes. And I think there are some churches that have somebody who is trained. I don't know if they're licensed, but they're certainly trained, and they receive certain parishioners come to they see certain members.
I think Family Life is a good combination, because I know Family Life is Christian as well as providing counseling.
But, its foundation is Christian, yes.
Yeah, its foundation is Christian. But I think that's one of the next persons I'm going to interview, because I kind of want to talk. Because I really do think there is, I think church can put certain people in positions where they're not equipped. They really aren't equipped to be counseling. You know what I mean? I think it's not just, having the anointing of the Holy Spirit. Like, you need some actual training.
They have a gift. They have a gift of, they have the gift of speaking, the gift of prophesying, and I don't just mean prophesying in terms of foretelling. They have the gift of love. They love people. They have the gift of service. It's like, I think it's Psalm 1 that says, "Blessed is the man that walketh not in the counsel of the ungodly." So if there's a counsel of the ungodly, then there must be a counsel of the godly.
Okay. All right, Craig. Yeah, man.
See what I did there?
Yes. I saw it.
Sometimes, these flashes of of
the spirit. Yes. All right, so this is a segment now called Ask a Therapist. I'm gonna give you 2 or 3 questions online, and you can kind of respond how you want as a therapist in this one. So
this is I didn't expect this. Do I have time to grab my DSM so I can diagnose? No, I'm joking. Please go ahead.
DSM.
I'm joking. What is that? Diagnostic Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders. Okay. Yeah, that's like the Bible.
Wow. Okay. Mental health professionals. I left my wife of 23 years for a younger woman who works at the car wash. I tell her about life, show her around. I spend a little money on her, not too much. I noticed she had my number saved under Wisdom on her phone. I figured she called me Wisdom because I teach her so much about life. My 18-year-old daughter sent me a TikTok video of my young girlfriend made. In the video, she said, "I'm so poor that I'm fucking on an old man who's shaped like a wisdom tooth, and he has the audacity to be cheap." Where do I go from here? Do I confront her? Just move on? I'm hurt and embarrassed. Advice.
So, how would I say it? God. Okay. So you want advice, not therapy. All right. So it seems to me that he should, it might be helpful for him to confront her about what he has found out. And it seems to me that he would benefit from understanding that this relationship is not serving him and he should perhaps move on.
Mm. Yes, okay. That's a good one. No sugar mom's type of, no sugar daddy sugar type of vibes.
No.
Because she clearly
But
uses, well, they're
hold
using
on.
each other.
But okay, so that's just you asking me a question and
Okay.
what I think should happen. But I have there's so many other things that I would explore in therapy. For example, I'd want to know is it him
Is it what?
what this relationship means to him. Well, he did leave his wife for her. How does the relationship serve him? What does he get from this relationship? And how is it different from the relationship he had with his wife? And if he were to leave, and how does he feel about what he has found out? And what would it mean for him if he was to walk away from this relationship?
A lot of time men put themselves, like they'll go for someone younger. So not all men, but a lot of times is if they don't feel validated from the current wife. And this woman will normally give them a sense of validation in that they're providing. So they're playing the role of a man. They're providing, you know what I mean, them get some sex every once in a while. Maybe the wife wasn't giving sex in the relationship. But a lot of times it's that. They're filling a void that they're not getting from the current wife. You know what I mean? It's not just, oh, my a hot young girl. You know what I mean? It's a lot of, I am providing, I am a man. You know what I mean? And a lot of men, they would rather start over than deal with the issues than fix the current issues in the relationship.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
I agree with you. I certainly agree with you. And hopefully in therapy, those kinds of things will come out.
Yeah, next one. Alright, here we go. Alright, I'm gonna give you a I don't want to give you one that's too ridiculous. So I'm gonna give you this one. Alright, here we go. I am living with my boyfriend. We don't have children. I am not working, so he pays all the bills. I am a kept woman. When he comes home in the evenings, he likes to see me looking pretty. I have his meals ready, but sometimes, even before he goes to the table, he wants to take me to another table. He calls me several times during the day to find out how I'm doing and if anybody has come by to see me. He says that he trusts me, but I ask him if he trusts me, why is he worried about people coming by to see me? The man doesn't even want my male relatives to come to the house. I am not doing anything for him to be worried about. Sometimes his sisters pop in on me and I am not expecting them. I have caught this man going through my things, including my cell phone, so I put a password on it, and now he is upset because he says I am hiding something from him. Is it wrong to have a password on my phone? I am playing it cool because I am waiting to get a call from the embassy for an interview. I don't want this man to know anything about it because he will try to stop me. I had a boyfriend and he caused my boyfriend and I to break up, and that is why I am living here with him. My ex-boyfriend doesn't know where I'm living, and every day I have to stay in this house with all the windows up, watching television, and most times without wearing much clothes, waiting on this man to come home. The good thing about it is that every cent that he gives me I can save because he pays all the bills. But I am not a happy girl. I want to get out of this place.
And I'm so glad that she has recognized that the situation she's in is unhealthy and that she is making plans to exit the situation. Many times when women are in that situation. They want to leave, but they have not planned their exit. So I'm glad she is doing that. And I also want to say that when you're having a conversation with somebody, you should always listen to how they talk about other people. Because how they talk about other people invariably will be how they will talk about you. So if you hear somebody, if you're talking to somebody and they are sharing things in the conversation with you that you are wondering, okay, why are you telling me this? Isn't this something sensitive or confidential? Like you're thinking that you can sure enough bet that they would do the same thing. They would share your information and talk about you with somebody else. The other thing is, if somebody got in between you and another person you were in a relationship with, what does that tell you about the person?
Right.
And so a lot of times I think we put ourselves in situations because we're not paying attention to what's going on in front of us. You know, I feel like if this young woman had considered, I'm in my relationship with this person, and this person has come in and does not respect my relationship, so why is he going to respect me? If somebody's in a relationship with you, if you're in a relationship with somebody and somebody else and is interested in you, and they're in a relationship already or not, but they're okay with you being the side piece, or they want to be your side piece, why wouldn't they do that to you? Like, what is it about them that makes you think, and what is it about you that makes you think that you're so special that they wouldn't do that to you?
Wouldn't do that to you. Facts. Can't front still in as a guy. I don't mind when a girl want me be the side piece still, honestly. I don't, okay, let me not play gender wars, but I feel like a lot of times women will find a guy that is already in a relationship more attractive than a guy that is single. Yes or no?
I've seen and heard this, yes.
So a lot of times they may pursue someone that is already taken, and it's kind of like an ego thing to take that person away from, you know what I mean? Like, so I think that affects women a lot more, and a lot of times, yeah, they do kind of overlook it. I feel like, are you thinking negative, or like, yeah, agreeing, or
No. I'm just listening.
But I think no. So I think though that so I'm not putting it on women, because some men as well have that where, you know, she break up with her man for him and thinks it and expect the relationship to last. But it's a people thing. But yeah, what you said was very succinct in breaking it down. All right, hold on. Let's do one more. Cause I don't think that was a good one for you. Here's this one. I'm 21 years old and I'm having a relationship with a guy who is 27. I don't love him, but he loves me. I am moved in with him. We have an understanding that it is a relationship with benefits. We have a 1-bedroom place, but it is very comfortable. The understanding between us is that I will keep the place clean. He pays all the bills and he buys the food. My God. I can go wherever I wish. Sometimes he pick me up after work, but if I don't want him to pick me up, I call him and tell him that he understands. If I'm going with another man, I let him know. I used to have a relationship with another guy, but he went to Canada. I am not willing to give him up because he's the man I really love. This guy I'm living with, I have sex with him often, sometimes twice per week. He doesn't force me to do anything. He has a sister who is my age, and whenever she comes to Kingston on business, she stays with us. He sleeps on the couch and his sister and I share the bed. My parents believe that this guy and I are lovers, but we are not lovers in the true sense of the word. I don't refuse to have sex with him because I know if I refuse, he can tell me to leave. He is a handsome guy and he can get any type of girl he wants. He earns a good salary. I met him when I was in financial trouble and I told him the truth. And we made an arrangement to live together and share the facilities. He doesn't own me and I don't own him. He does not abuse me in any way. So I would say he's a good man. I have even tried to love him the way I love my boyfriend, but that is not happening. Do you think that I am bad? I hope you don't think that way. That is
No,
wow.
I don't think she's bad, but I also don't I don't know if it's my place to say that they're not in a relationship. They're in an arrangement.
Mm.
No, actually, she said it. They're friends with benefits. So it seems to me that she needs to be clear or she needs to be reminded
Mm.
about what it is. Is it a friends with benefits or is it a relationship? Because if it's a friends with benefits, then why are we getting into the whole talk about um like what is she feeling guilty about exactly, you know?
I think it's the judgment. I think the judgment is she doesn't love him as much as he loves her. I don't think honestly I don't think him like her like that still, you know. I think it's convenience. I think it's a convenience for him.
Right, because which man is going to be unless they are in unless the rules of their and I'm using the word relationship loosely
Mm.
is that is that they have an open relationship.
Yeah. Because him don't mind if she has, if a man don't get vexed say sleep with other man, then
Right.
he don't love him.
Yeah. Like, you sure this is a relationship? You
I
sure?
just think
Right.
she, and I feel like women are always scared of being judged.
Yes,
I don't,
there is that thing
I
about being
hate
a
saying he's
whore
kind of
or
like
being seen as a
overgeneralizing.
whore. Right.
Yeah, but I do think I think she's worried that she's being judged because it's an open relationship and the arrangement isn't a common. The way how comfortable they both are, that seem cool.
Right. So it's not one of those socially sanctioned setups.
Yeah,
But it's their
yeah,
relationship, right? That's their arrangement. And I'm
it's
again
working
using the
for
word
them.
relationship loosely or
Mm.
generally. Um, and she mentioned the parents, his parents think that there's more going on than what there really is.
Mm.
Well, you know, I'm not saying parents don't matter, but they have to live their life in a way that works for them. Let me put it that way.
Mm.
And
That's it.
so maybe one day his mother will find out what's going on. But for now,
Yo,
let's sleep
I
in
think
dogs lie.
yeah, I think one, him not really love her that much. Yo, that man is living a good life. Him come home every once in a while, him get some sex from. They're like roommates. You know what I mean? Every once in a while, him get some sex from a roommate. You know what I mean? And if she and him say, oh yeah, sleep with somebody else, as long as you not bring him at my yard. I think it's that. She keeping the boundary. She not bring no random dude at the man
Right.
yard.
So she has not disrespected him. He hasn't
Yeah,
disrespected her. You know, it works.
yeah. But there's no love in that one, man. That's a convenience.
Yeah. And so I just think, if she's clear about what really is going on, then maybe that will dispense a lot of the guilt that she's feeling.
Yeah, I think she hasn't communicated it properly, so that's why she feel guilty.
Yeah.
Once again, thank you so much, Craig. Yo, this was really good. This was actually a very good discussion. Yeah, I'm very much looking forward to this. So, where can people find you? Please give them your Instagram, give them your TikTok. Let's.
Okay, sure, no problem. So my Instagram is Dr. Craig McNally. And you can book sessions with me by going to calendly.com. And my LinkedIn handle is linkedin.com/in/Dr. Craig McNally.
All right, bro. Okay, thank you very much, Craig. Guys, check in on Therapy JA every week. We have a different interview. Thank you so much.